Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm flying solo on this wonderful Monday morning. Um, Dylan was unable to make it today. So we're going to break down the 2024 NCAA tournament. The season's coming to a close, and we'll go over uh, what it's projecting and what stuff looks like we're going to have for the tournament coming up. So um, there are a ton of really good conference tournaments coming up this week, and um, and the season's coming to a close. And then obviously we'll have selection Sunday, and then we'll have a better idea of what the brackets are going to look like. Um, so for those of you who are new to it, there are 64 teams. That's now actually 60. I think it's 68 for Uh, it might even be more than 68 at this point, but so there's not playing games, but huge bracket. Uh, Actually, we can look at the bracket real quick. 68. Okay, I was right. So this is what the bracket looks like, and this is a projected teams that are going to be in it, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So, uh, we have various conference championships that receive an automatic bid if you win your conference championship tournament. Um, Ohio Valley Conference, the Big South has one. Missouri Conference, the Sun Conference starts today. The Sun Belt, the Southeastern Conference, Horizon League, Northeast Conference, Coastal Athletic, WCC, which is the West Coast Conference, Summit League, Southland, Big Sky, Patriot League, America East, Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, Southwestern Athletic Conference, the Big 12, Mountain West, Big East, Metro Athletic, Atlantic Conference, Mid-American Conference, Conference USA, Atlantic Coast Conference, Big West, Pac-12, Western Alliance, Ivy League, Atlantic 10, SEC, the AAC, and the Big 10 all have tournaments for automatic bids either this weekend or next weekend. Um, you have a lot of the mid majors or smaller conferences that have their tournaments this weekend, and then the uh, Big Ten, ACC, Pac-12. Those will be next week, and then like I said, Selection Sunday after that. So we're about 2 weeks out, but we'll look at how it sits right now. Um, so according to Lenardi, who's pretty good on these things, top overall seed right now is the Purdue Boilermakers out of the Big Ten. Then you have Villanova, the first team out of the WCC, and then I think the Conference USA, Providence Friars is the last team in. So, and here's a kind of an expanded look at the bubble here. Florida Atlantic, Nevada, Wake Forest, and Virginia are the last four buys. So those are the last four into the original 64. And then the last four in are New Mexico, Gonzaga, who's another WCC team that it's kind of a big team. Seton Hall's a big historic program that makes it in, and Providence. Uh, then you have Villanova, who's won a couple national championships recently. Utah, Colorado, and St. John's out. Texas A&M, Iowa, Ole Miss, and Kansas State are the next four out. It's going to be an interesting year because nobody has really stood out considerably. Um, I think your top four seeds probably are Houston, Purdue, UConn, and then Marquette. there's a litany of teams tied at 21-6. So you have Tennessee, Marquette, Arizona, Kansas, Iowa State, North Carolina, Duke, and Auburn, all tied at 21-6 as we stand today. Um, so there's a lot of good teams that are very close this year. So it will come down to conference tournaments, and there's really a big push to get in or not to get in this year. Uh, so as we get a little bit further into this, we see that he agrees in the Midwest Detroit bracket. So these games will be held in Detroit, Michigan. You have Purdue against either Eastern Kentucky or Norfolk State, and these are just the projected. Like I said, we'll know more in a couple weeks here, but uh, Purdue looks good. They look like they can beat anybody in the country, but then there's consistency issues, and I don't know. They played close games with a lot of people, so they just barely beat Michigan State recently. Um, they're 11th in the nation in points per game. Um, they play good defense. I don't know. Could be could be a good matchup to watch. So, uh, but they're not the teams that we've seen before that are just absolute no doubters. They're just going to run away with it. Um, Oklahoma Sooners, Colorado State, typical 8-9 matchup. Could go either way. Uh, Clemson playing Richmond. So Clemson is, of course, an ACC school. They're kind of middle of the pack of the ACC, but it's kind of a legacy conference. You have Duke and North Carolina, Wake Forest, all those kind of teams. So, um, and they don't look great on paper. Clemson is 81st points per game, tied for 108 in rebounds per game, and again played relatively good defense. Not a lot of hype around them. So then we go back and Auburn versus Louisiana Tech, South Carolina against Gonzaga or Providence. If that's the way that shakes out, that's going to be a fun matchup to watch in the Omaha bracket. Um, and then you have typical blue blood Kansas. Kansas has had a disappointing year, but it's still could be a 3. Um, they haven't lost much, but uh, and they seem to be playing kind of worse as the season goes on. So we might even see them drop a little bit further. And again, just mid 100s for stats. So not there's nothing really sets them apart. But Kansas gets Cornell, Boise State and Wake Forest, Marquette and Oakland. Um, like I said, I think Marquette should be a 1 seed. We'll see who they have the other one projected as, but I think Marquette's a good squad and probably one of the better teams in the country. And oops, I didn't want to click on that. 2 is not terrible, but 2 is not great either. So just looking. Blah blah blah. Trying to see where they have them in power rankings. Yeah, they have them all the way in 8 in power rankings. Uh, they play UConn and Xavier coming up. So some questions, and they could fall a little bit further, but I think they're one of the better teams in the country. So then we go over to the East Boston bracket. So if I had to pick somebody out of this one right now, um, I don't know. I like Marquette. I think Purdue is prone to choking. They're great at it. Um, so I'd take Marquette out of this Detroit bracket. So then we go to the East Boston. UConn is one of the favorites, and like I said, they're playing Marquette this week, so that will be a fun matchup to keep an eye on. Um, they're great in the Big East, but the Big East isn't it isn't a premier conference. Um, they put up a lot of points on offense and play good defense, and so that's can't ask for much more. They're from the prior crop of legacy programs, so and they have some tough ones with Marquette and Providence that are going to be playing for their tournament lives. So that should be a good test coming up to see really where they're at. Let me go down to Merrimack. Know nothing about them, but if they make it in, I'll look. Texas Longhorns against the disappointing Michigan State Spartans, my alma mater. Man, Michigan State's look rough this year. 9-9 in conference, 17-12 overall. I think they'll make the tournament. It's been incredibly disappointing. They play good defense, but they're tied for 173rd in points per game with 74.4, and it just has not looked. It has not looked good for Spartans. We have some good recruits coming in again next year. There were some good recruits that came in recently. And it was supposed to be a much better year for Michigan State. It's been disappointing. Walker just doesn't care to be there. Hoggard hasn't played well. Walker hasn't played well. But there's some bright spots again, some 4 and 5 stars that are coming in for the next season to match with Fears and the crop that came in this year. So seems like we might be building for one more, but it's not going to happen this year. They'll probably win the first game and then be bounced by UConn. So Washington State, Appalachian State, then we have Blue Blood, Kentucky, again with a really an off year, kind of sitting down there after, of course, Calipari retires, and I'm kind of in the middle of going back and forth. They put up a lot of points on offense. They're 4th in the country, but just haven't been consistent and too many bad losses. So they're on a 3-game win streak to close it out so far. So not terrible. They have Vanderbilt and Tennessee coming up to finish the season. And then we go further down. St. Mary's, Indiana State, Baylor, High Point, Florida, Florida Atlantic, UNC versus Colgate. So North Carolina, another one of those ones that's had really kind of a disappointing year. They're still leading the ACC 15-3, 23-6 record overall. But losses to Syracuse, Clemson, Georgia Tech, UConn, Kentucky, Villanova, also been a disappointing year for the Tar Heels. So coming out of this East bracket, the way it sits right now, I hate picking ones, but I think UConn probably probably comes out of this bracket. I don't see anybody else. Maybe Baylor, but Baylor's so hot and cold with the way they play offense that I don't know that I trust them. Um, so when we get down here, Arizona in the West or Los Angeles bracket. Uh, the Wildcats have been, I don't know. At times they look unbeatable, and at other times they drop one that they probably shouldn't have. All their games have been close. They've lost a couple to Florida Atlantic, close. Um, they lost a pair of games to Washington by 3 points each. Uh, they lost one to Oregon State. I mean Washington State, not Washington. Um, and they're out there in that Pac-12, leading the Pac-12, 14-4 record in conference, 23-6 overall. So I don't know. We'll see how they finish the year. I think they should probably be a 2, not a 1. Um, who else is in this bracket? Northwestern, TCU, typical 8-9 matchup again. BYU, Grand Canyon, San Diego State, UC Irvine, Wisconsin taking on either New Mexico or Seton Hall, Alabama. Uh, Alabama's been an interesting watch this year. 12-4, 28-9 overall record. They're number 2 in the entire nation in points per game. They can put up a lot of points. Um, they've won in the SEC quite a bit. But they've also lost some out of conference games. They lost to Purdue, they lost to Creighton, Arizona, that kind of thing. So when they match Ohio State, so when they match up with teams outside of conference, they don't fare incredibly well. And again, it's the potent offense, and if you have a bad shooting night, that doesn't bode well for the tournament. So, not high hopes that they go a long way, but should be a fun team to watch if they're on for the first game or two. Um, Utah State, Virginia, Iowa State, and Eastern Washington. Iowa State's a newcomer to the 2 line. Haven't seen them here before. And what's left of that Big 12. So, Big 12 has Baylor, Houston, Iowa State, that kind of thing. Uh, don't seem to do a ton well. Um, just just kind of a good grinding defense and put up one more point than you do. So, looking at their losses, they lost to Oklahoma, BYU, Baylor, Houston. They don't really have they don't really have a big signature win. I think their best win is probably Kansas. But other than that, they did beat Houston. So they split with Houston, but when they beat Houston, it was 57-53. So a low scoring defensive battle. So coming out of this West bracket, again, there's not a clear favorite. I kind of like Wisconsin as the dark horse. Uh, I could also obviously see Arizona, uh, but we'll see. We'll see what happens there. And then we move to the last bracket, which is the South bracket held in Dallas. We have those Houston Cougars. Houston again, weird team. Just not used to being here. They've made tournaments, but I don't know when the last time they've been on a one line. Uh, Again, just a defense, grind it out kind of team, and if they can get you to play their game, then they will. But if they run into a hot team, it might be an issue. Um, they're on a pretty good streak. Their last loss was to Kansas, so pretty hot team coming in at the right time. I think that they probably belong up there. They take on the Jackrabbits of South Dakota State. Then we have Mississippi State, Nebraska, Illinois taking on McNeese, Duke. The Duke Blue Devils make it in down here on the 4 line, taking on Samford. Um, so that could be a sneaky matchup coming, or a sneaky team coming out of the middle of that bracket because it's Duke. And although I'm not a big fan, uh, they're Duke. And again, the legacy coach Krzyzewski is gone. They're sitting 1 game behind North Carolina for the top of the ACC. So they're right where they generally are. It's just been a weird season. So look for Duke. And then we go down Samford, Dayton, and South Florida. Dayton's always dangerous. The Dayton Flyers, no idea why, but they come to play. So that'd be fun coming out of the Pittsburgh section of the Dallas bracket. Creighton Blue Jays take on Charleston. Creighton could be a team to watch on that 3 line right now. I think that's a good spot for them. 22-8 overall. Assists and points per game, both in the top 50. Play good defense. They split with UConn. They won 1, lost 1. So, and they played a lot of great competition that's in the top of the bracket at this point. Or in the bracket to begin with. So, they recently beat Marquette by 14. And they have Villanova, who's fighting for a spot coming up this week. So we have Texas Tech and Nevada, Tennessee, and Fairfield. So Tennessee Volunteers, they should win the SEC. They have a record of 23-6, 1 game ahead of the South Carolina Gamecocks. They've lost to. They won most of the games they should, and they've lost the ones to teams that are clearly better than them. So they're kind of a middle of the pack team. I don't know that they. I mean, of course, they're going to get a 2 or maybe even a 1, but I don't think they should be. Just because they're going to be conference championships of one of the power conferences, but I don't think they're a true 2. So coming out of this bracket, I think it's going to come from the middle. I think it's either going to be Duke or Creighton. I think both the ones have fatal. The 1 and the 2 have potentially fatal flaws, and could get knocked out by the middle of this bracket somewhere. There's going to be some tough games in here. I would predict it would be Creighton, Dayton. That's going to be fun to watch. Duke, Illinois. That's going to be fun to watch. So this is going to be a good bracket to keep an eye on if everything holds. This is a conference breakdown. The Big 12 is projected to have 9 teams in. SEC 7, Big 10 6, down from usual for the Big 10. Mountain West 6, Big East 5, ACC 5. Pac-12 only gets 2. American and West Coast get 2, and so does the Atlantic 10. So again, some of those mid-major programs that are typical college basketball powerhouses and get more teams in are going to not get as many as they generally do. So, if I had to pick today who wins the national championship, I wouldn't want to do that because there's a lot of basketball left to be played. Uh, I yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know who I would pick. If I had to, I'm just looking over them again one more time. If I had to, um, I could see something like a Marquette UConn final and maybe a UConn national championship. But that's probably as far as I'm willing to go until we get uh, some solidified spots. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how everything shakes out. If some of these teams in this, column, Villanova can make it over. Um, so if we look at Villanova, I'll take a look at Villanova compared to the last four in and see if we can see. Um, so Nova's 17-12, fifth in the Big East. And again, not great, not great. Um, they dropped one to UConn. They just really had kind of a rush stretch. They played Marquette, UConn, St. John's, Butler, and then Marquette again, and lost all 5. So tough stretch. When you look at Providence, Providence is actually one line below Villanova, with a conference record of 9-9 and an overall record of 18-11. So worse in the conference, better nationally, and kind of losses to similar teams. And been on a slide. They just lost to Villanova as well. They have Georgetown and UConn coming up. Nova has Seton Hall and Creighton. So I could see a spot where that Providence Villanova spot flips, and you could get Nova in, Providence out. Seton Hall, same way, 11-7. They're one line above Nova, 18-11 overall record. So one game better in conference, one game better overall. Seton Hall also plays Nova to end the season. So, and then that's not the team I was looking for, right? Oh yeah, it is. Gonzaga. Gonzaga's 24-6, 14-2 in conference, and they're on that last 4 in line. They've lost some tough games to UConn, Purdue, St. Mary's, but they did beat Kentucky and they beat St. Mary's as a ranked team. So Gonzaga's probably pretty safely in. And then we look at New Mexico State, or New Mexico, excuse me. 21-8 overall, 9-7 in conference. And losses to Air Force and Boise recently. So they're another one that could be dropping. So, but yeah, that's kind of the field that we have currently. Seton Hall looks like they're, yeah, just a little bit above, just a little bit below. So it'll be interesting coming out of that Big East conference, who's going to make it in. So I'd imagine they have 2 teams out of that St. John's, Providence, Villanova, Seton Hall bracket. Like 2 of those teams will probably make it in, and 2 of them will not, and they play each other. So that's fun. And then one of them could go on a run, win the conference, and throw a wrench in everything, even if it was the team that was not out. That's the beauty of the automatic qualifier. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what we have going forward. Uh, like I said, there's some interesting games coming up this weekend, and then of course the major conference championships next weekend. So it's college hoops time. It's time for March Madness. But with that, until next time, it's going to be it for me today. And as we get closer to the season, end of the season, and to the bracket, I'll do a bracket and that kind of stuff. So thanks for watching. Please hit the like button on the way out. And until next time, take care, everybody.